In 2020, the global economy hit a brick wall. Factories went dark, international supply chains completely froze, and millions of workers were abruptly sent home. Common sense tells us that a paralyzed economy should lead to crashing markets. Instead, we witnessed a bizarre explosion in prices. The stock market rallied to record highs, cryptocurrencies surged. Even the cost of everyday consumer goods, from used cars to smartphones, began climbing relentlessly. A house didn't magically become a better, more productive asset while everyone was locked inside. The currency used to buy these assets simply became significantly weaker. This chart tracks the U.S. money supply. After decades of stability, the line breaks in 2020. The government printed roughly 40% of all money in circulation, mechanically pumping trillions of new dollars into a system producing fewer physical goods forces all prices upward. The inflation squeezing the working class right now is a mechanical, mathematical transfer of purchasing power. To see exactly how our wealth became so vulnerable to a printing press, we have to look at how money lost its anchor. For centuries, humanity universally agreed on gold and silver as the ultimate store of value. The reasoning was purely practical. Gold is chemically indestructible. It doesn't rust, and most importantly, it is inherently scarce. You cannot print it. You have to dig it out of the dirt. But physical metal has a severe logistical flaw. It is incredibly heavy. Hauling chests of silver across borders to facilitate large-scale international trade was slow, expensive, and a massive target for thieves. The solution arrived first in China's Tang Dynasty and later spread to Europe: paper money. These early banknotes functioned as lightweight, convenient receipts for a specific weight of metal. The rule was absolute. Every single paper note in circulation was an IOU. It represented a specific, equivalent weight of physical gold securely locked inside a vault. Under this standard, a government's ability to spend was physically chained to the actual gold it possessed. A nation could only increase its wealth through actual production, not by conjuring money out of thin air. Eventually, banks realized a tempting loophole. Since depositors rarely asked for all their heavy gold back at the exact same time, institutions began quietly printing and lending out far more paper receipts than the gold they actually held. This fractional lending created immense leverage, but it also triggered cataclysmic panics. Whenever a rumor spread that a bank was insolvent, citizens rushed to withdraw their deposits, quickly exposing that the vaults were mostly empty. During a particularly brutal financial panic in the early 20th century, the wealthiest banker in America, J.P. Morgan, stepped in. He realized that the chaotic banking sector needed a centralized lender, a backstop with enough capital to bail out failing banks and prevent total systemic collapse. In 1910, a highly secretive meeting took place. A small group of elite banking moguls, whose combined fortunes represented roughly a quarter of the entire world's wealth, isolated themselves at a private club on Jekyll Island to draft a blueprint for a new financial system. Their blueprint became law in 1913, signed by President Woodrow Wilson. It established the Federal Reserve. A private banking entity was officially granted the exclusive authority to manage the nation's money supply. While this new central bank wielded immense influence over the economy, their ultimate power to print was still tethered. The lingering rules of the gold standard kept the printing presses somewhat in check. By the mid-20th century, the U.S. dollar had secured its place as the primary global reserve currency. Foreign nations conducted trade in dollars because they completely trusted that those dollars were backed by America's massive physical gold reserves. But by the late 1960s, the math no longer added up. Foreign governments realized the U.S. was aggressively printing more dollars than it could ever cover with the gold it actually had. Fearing a collapse, nations began demanding their physical gold back, draining American vaults. Facing the total depletion of U.S. gold reserves, President Richard Nixon stepped in front of the cameras in 1971. He unilaterally announced the complete and permanent separation of the dollar from gold. This marked the birth of modern fiat money. For the first time, global currency was backed by absolutely nothing but government decree and public faith. By severing the physical anchor, the final physical limitation on the printing press was dismantled. The dollar transitioned from a strict receipt of value into a highly elastic tool of economic manipulation. Today, without the gold standard holding them back, central banks can respond to any economic friction by simply adding digits to a digital ledger. And the system is explicitly designed to lose value. The Federal Reserve intentionally targets a constant yearly inflation rate. The logic is that if your money is guaranteed to be worth less tomorrow, you will be forced to spend it or invest it today. This chart shows the purchasing power of a single US dollar from 1971 to the present. Holding cash over several decades guarantees a significant loss of purchasing power, which steadily drives the price of physical, scarce assets upward. This dynamic aggressively expands wealth inequality. It punishes the working class who rely on wages and savings, while it reliably pushes up the net worth of those wealthy enough to hold real estate, stocks, and hard assets. Under a fiat system, this targeted erosion of value is the core feature of the economy, designed to force money into circulation by penalizing those who try to save it. Because the US dollar dictates global trade, prices oil, and serves as the reserve for foreign central banks, you do not need to live in America to be caught in this trap. When the Federal Reserve increases the total supply of dollars, they dilute the value of every existing dollar held in foreign reserves. Since nations use these reserves to pay for imports, a surge in U.S. printing forces other countries to pay more for the same goods, effectively exporting American inflation across the globe. This silent erosion of purchasing power will continue as long as the supply of money remains unchecked. Recognizing that modern fiat currency is an illusion designed to stretch is the only way to begin protecting your actual wealth.